Ethan hurried through the airport, his heart racing. Today was a momentous occasion, the interview for his dream job at a Fortune 500 company. As he approached his gate, he caught sight of an elderly woman grappling with her luggage, her delicate hands quivering with effort. Individuals strolled by, paying her no mind. Ethan paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. If he offered assistance, he would risk missing his flight. His future hung in the balance. Yet a part of him held steadfast, unwilling to turn his back. With a deep sigh, he pivoted and extended his assistance, oblivious to the fact that this one gesture of goodwill would alter the course of his existence indefinitely. Because the woman he was assisting was far from an ordinary traveler. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up and let us know your location in the comments. Your support enables us to share even more impactful narratives. Let us commence. Ethan straightened his tie while navigating the crowded airport terminal with urgency. Today marked a pivotal moment that had the potential to transform his entire existence. After months of diligent preparation, he was ready for this job interview. An opportunity with a Fortune 500 company that could propel his career to extraordinary levels. There was no way I could afford to miss this flight. He glanced at his watch, adrenaline surging as he navigated through the throng, his carry-on bag swaying beside him. Gate B12 loomed just ahead, and he had only moments left before the doors would shut. As he quickened his stride, a flicker of movement drew his gaze from the periphery. An elderly woman lingered by the check-in counter, grappling with her suitcase. The bag loomed large, nearly double her size, and despite her determined attempts, she found herself unable to hoist it onto the conveyor belt. Individuals hurried by, absorbed in their own agendas, oblivious to the world around them. Her delicate hands quivered as she attempted once again, only to falter yet again. Ethan tightened his jaw, a silent storm brewing within him. He was focused, leaving no room for distractions. This flight held the key to his future. Yet, an inexplicable quality in the scene caused his steps to falter. He was brought up to a higher standard than this. The voice of his mother resonated within him, a poignant reminder that achieving success held no value if it came at the cost of his humanity. Taking a moment to gather his thoughts, he arrived at his conclusion. He shifted his gaze to the woman. "Pardon me, madam. Are you in need of assistance?" The elderly woman glanced up, taken aback, and then offered him a grateful smile. "Oh my, you are exceedingly gracious. This bag needs to find its way onto the counter, yet it weighs more than I anticipated." Ethan hoisted the suitcase with ease and set it down on the conveyor belt. "There you go," he remarked, his smile radiating reassurance. "Everything is in place." She rested her hand softly on his arm. "You are a fine young man. Thanks a lot." Ethan beamed and pivoted back to his gate, just in time to catch his name echoing through the loudspeaker. His stomach plummeted. "Attention, passengers. This is the final boarding call for Flight 267 heading to New York, Gate B12. A wave of anxiety washed over him as he dashed ahead, weaving between fellow travelers and their luggage. His lungs ached with a fiery intensity. Thoughts surged through his mind. He absolutely had to catch this flight. He arrived at the gate just as the door closed. "Stop, please. That's my flight," he gasped, clutching the edge of the counter. The gate agent hardly glanced up. "I apologize, sir. The boarding for the flight has concluded." Ethan felt a heavy weight in his chest. All that he had strived for vanished. His ideal opportunity awaited, a moment that could shape the future he had always imagined. It was fading into the distance. He rested against the counter, inhaling deeply, a sense of regret washing over him. Had he truly sacrificed it all for just a fleeting moment of compassion? The elderly woman drew near, her gaze heavy with worry. "Oh my goodness. Did I cause you to miss your flight?" Ethan managed to smile. "It's perfectly fine, ma'am. I will come up with a solution." She observed him intently for a while, then delved into her purse and retrieved a stylish, black business card. "You might want to give this number a call," she suggested, passing it to him. Ethan accepted the card with a touch of reluctance, his eyes flickering over its surface. His breath hitched. The name on the card was familiar, having appeared in business magazines and articles in Forbes. It was owned by one of the most influential CEOs in the nation. Perplexed, he gazed at the woman. "Hold on. This is your business," she said with a knowing smile. "It seems you may have attended the incorrect meeting today." Ethan's thoughts whirled as he came to the astonishing conclusion that missing his flight could very well be the most fortuitous twist of fate he had ever encountered. Ethan gazed at the business card in his hand, his heart pounding with anticipation. The name inscribed on it was that of Margaret Whitmore, the CEO of Whitmore Enterprises, a powerhouse among the Fortune 500 companies in the nation. He had encountered her story numerous times, seen interviews where she discussed leadership and perseverance. Yet standing here, gazing at the gentle-eyed elderly woman before him, he could scarcely fathom it. "And you? Are you Margaret Whitmore?" he inquired, his voice scarcely rising above a murmur. She let out a soft laugh. "Shocked?" He nodded, his mind racing to grasp the unfolding events. Just moments earlier, he believed he had shattered his prospects. Now he found himself before a woman who held the ability to alter the course of everything with just one choice. Margaret cast a fleeting look at the shut gate before turning her gaze back to Ethan. "What was your destination?" Ethan gulped nervously. "New York City. I attended a job interview with Lancaster and Bell." Her brow arched ever so slightly.
"Ah, LEB.
"A remarkable establishment. Driven. I presume it was a position for an executive trainee?" He gave a slight nod. "Indeed. I have been diligently preparing for months." She observed him with keen interest. "And yet, you paused to assist a stranger rather than hurrying to your gate." He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. It seemed like the appropriate course of action. Margaret's lips formed a gentle smile. "That speaks volumes about you, young man." She pivoted in the direction of the lounge area. "Join me for a brief moment, won't you?" Ethan trailed behind her, a lingering doubt in his mind about whether this was all just a figment of his imagination. As they nestled into a serene nook, she inclined her body forward. "Share some details about your background and interests, your history, your aspirations." After a moment of doubt, he chose to embrace the truth. He shared with her the story of his upbringing in a quaint little town, where his parents labored diligently to ensure he had everything he needed. He shared his experience of navigating college life, juggling several jobs alongside his finance studies. He expressed his aspiration to join a prestigious company, ascend the ranks, and ultimately establish his reputation in the realm of business. Margaret absorbed every word, her head bobbing in agreement from time to time. As he concluded, she drummed her fingers lightly on the armrest of her chair. She remarked that you evoke memories of her younger self. Resolute, driven, and prepared to give up for what is genuinely important. Ethan sensed his heart racing. Was this heading in the direction he anticipated? Margaret delved into her purse once more and retrieved another card, this time featuring a handwritten number on its reverse side. "I want you to meet someone," she said as she handed it to him. "Make sure to reach out to this number first thing tomorrow morning. Inform them that Margaret Whitmore referred you." Ethan's hands quivered ever so slightly as he grasped the card. "Who is it? Whom am I reaching out to?" She smiled with a hint of understanding. "The director responsible for hiring at my company." His breath hitched. "Are you presenting me with a job opportunity?" Margaret's demeanor shifted to one of gravity. "An opportunity is being presented to you. The choice to elevate it into something more significant lies entirely in your hands." Ethan reclined, his thoughts swirling around him. Only an hour prior, he believed his future had come to an end. In his grasp was a direct connection to one of the most influential corporations on the planet. Destiny had woven a surprising thread, and for the first time in his existence, he sensed that he was precisely where he was destined to be. Ethan remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the tiny card clutched in his hand, as though it could vanish at any instant. The burden of recent events bore down heavily upon him. He had overlooked his interview, yet in exchange, he had been presented with something far more significant, an opportunity that individuals devoted their whole careers to pursuing. His thoughts surged with endless potential. What type of position was she presenting? Was this genuine, or was it merely an illusion of perfection? Margaret observed him intently, a spark of amusement dancing in her eyes. "It seems as though 1,000 thoughts are racing through your mind," she remarked. He exhaled unsteadily. "I certainly do. This is rather surprising. Life is brimming with unforeseen instances," she remarked. "The inquiry is, are you prepared to embrace the risk with them?" Ethan gulped nervously. He had dedicated his life to playing it safe, adhering to the rules and remaining true to the plan. He had meticulously planned each phase of his career, convinced that progress could only be achieved through diligent effort and thoughtful tactics. Yet, in a heartbeat, everything had transformed. He had ventured away from his meticulously charted course to assist a stranger, and it had taken him to an unexpected destination. Margaret glanced at her watch. "I have a flight to catch, but I urge you to reflect on something before making any choices." Ethan lifted his gaze, anticipation hanging in the air. She expressed that she constructed her company from the very foundation. "I have witnessed a myriad of individuals pass through my life. Some were exceptionally talented, some driven by their aspirations, and some believed they could bypass the hard work needed for achievement. Yet those who genuinely succeed, they recognize that true achievement goes beyond mere actions. It revolves around your identity." Ethan sensed a tightness constricting his throat. For years, he toiled relentlessly, striving to demonstrate his worth, yearning for the moment when someone would finally recognize his true potential. Now, the most formidable woman he had ever encountered was conveying to him that it extended beyond mere credentials or experience. It centered around him. Margaret rose and repositioned the strap of her purse. "Make sure to dial that number first thing tomorrow, by 9 at the latest. If you arrive late, the opportunity may no longer be available." Ethan's grip on the card intensified. "I'll be punctual," she said with a smile. "Excellent." With that, she pivoted and strolled toward the gate, vanishing into the throng. Ethan lingered in silence, his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. He arrived at the airport that morning, convinced that his destiny hinged on a single job interview. His whole existence had suddenly veered onto an unfamiliar path, leaving him in the dark about what lay ahead. Yet, after a considerable stretch of time, he felt ready to discover the truth. Ethan hardly found rest that night. With each gentle flutter of his eyelids, the day's events danced vividly in his mind, a relentless loop of memories unfolding before him. Margaret's words resonated within him, stirring a mix of exhilaration and doubt. He had always held the conviction that achieving success demanded careful and detailed preparation. Yet here he stood, confronted by an unexpected opportunity that had seemingly materialized from thin air. He couldn't take his eyes off the small business card lying on his nightstand, its existence evoking a mix of excitement and fear. As dawn broke, Ethan had come to a conclusion. He stepped into the shower, adorned himself in his finest shirt, and settled at the edge of his bed, phone grasped in his hand. His fingers quivered ever so slightly as he punched in the number, stealing a glance at the clock. The clock read 8:59 a.m. The call went through on the very first ring. "Good morning," came the crisp response of a seasoned expert. "The office of Margaret Lawson." Ethan took a moment to clear his throat. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ethan Carter. I received instructions to reach out to this number." A brief moment of silence was interrupted by the rhythmic tapping of keys. "Indeed, Mr. Carter. Please hold for just a moment." His heart raced in anticipation, the distant murmur of voices echoing around him. Then another voice emerged, recognizable, comforting, and authoritative. "Ethan," Margaret remarked, "I had anticipated your call." "I promised you," he said. "I like that," she responded. "Being on time is an excellent beginning. Pay close attention. Your ride will arrive in 30 minutes. I'm eager to see how this unfolds." Ethan felt his heart race. Prepared for what exactly? To demonstrate that yesterday was more than mere chance. The connection was lost before he had the chance to pose another inquiry. He let out a sharp breath, gazing at his surroundings. He had anticipated an address, an interview time, something routine. Instead, he found himself cast into the abyss of uncertainty once more. Half an hour later, a polished black vehicle arrived at his apartment's entrance. The driver, clad in a sharp suit, emerged and silently opened the door. Ethan paused for just a moment before making his move. The journey seemed to stretch on forever. The city rushed by in a haze as Ethan focused on what might come next. At last, they arrived at a magnificent glass edifice that exuded authority and elegance. Upon his exit, a blend of wonder and apprehension washed over him. A woman with an earpiece welcomed him inside. "Mr. Carter, please accompany me." She guided him along the marble-floored corridors until they arrived at an imposing door. With a firm shove, she opened the door, unveiling an office that commanded a breathtaking view of the entire city. Margaret lingered by the window, her arms folded tightly across her chest. As he stepped inside, she pivoted, her face a mask of ambiguity. "Please, Ethan," she urged. "Do you find yourself waiting for chances to come your way? Or are you the type who takes the initiative to forge your own path?" He locked eyes with her, acutely aware that his next words held the power to alter the course of their lives. Ethan locked eyes with Margaret, his thoughts swirling in a tempest. Every part of him sensed that this was something beyond a mere interview. It was an examination, one that surpassed all his prior preparations. He adjusted his stance, compelling himself to calm his tone. "Opportunities are for those who are able to see them," he stated. "Yesterday, I had the option to turn and leave. I could have brushed you off and arrived at my interview punctually, yet an inner voice urged me to recognize that this moment held greater significance than any of my prior arrangements." Margaret observed him intently, then motioned to the chair positioned before her desk. Ethan sat, his hands intertwined firmly to prevent any signs of shaking. "Are you aware of the journey I took to create my empire, Heina?" she inquired. He gave a slight shake of his head. She recounted her days as a waitress, struggling to make ends meet, relying on tips, and enduring double shifts just to cover the rent. Every day, individuals strolled by without a moment's notice, yet one man, an utter stranger, recognized my struggle. His guidance transformed my entire perspective. He conveyed to me that my potential extends far beyond these confines. All you require is for someone to recognize it. Ethan leaned in, utterly enthralled by her narrative. "That moment ignited a passion within me," she continued. "I immersed myself in knowledge, embraced challenges, and ascended to success. At this point, I no longer seek individuals with flawless credentials. I seek individuals who possess intuition, tenacity, and the bravery to embrace uncertainty." Ethan felt a sudden tightness in his throat. "Is that the reason for my presence here?" Margaret offered a faint smile. "You chose to set aside your own plans to assist someone who required help. That reveals more about you than any interview possibly could." A sudden knock at the door broke the silence. A gentleman clad in a suit made his entrance, holding a folder in his grasp. Without uttering a single word, he passed it to Margaret and walked away. She opened it, her eyes skimming the contents before she slid it across the desk. Ethan paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes as he reached for it. His eyes grew large with surprise as he absorbed the opening line. "Exciting opportunity, leadership development initiative, Lawson Enterprises. I am presenting you with an opportunity," Margaret stated. "A role crafted for individuals who possess the potential to emerge as leaders. It won't be simple. Challenges, failures, and moments of self-doubt will inevitably come your way. Yet, if you persevere, you might create something far beyond your wildest dreams." Ethan sensed his heartbeat thundering in his ears. "What makes me the right choice? Yesterday, you demonstrated your leadership qualities. You simply haven't come to that understanding yet." His grip on the folder grew firmer. He reflected on the job interview he had overlooked, the journey he had once considered his sole opportunity for achievement. And yet here he stood, presented with an opportunity far beyond his expectations. "This is your moment," Margaret declared. "What will you do with it?" Ethan inhaled deeply, aware that only one response awaited him. Ethan gazed at the job offer in his hands, his heart racing with anticipation. Only a day prior, he had been hurrying towards an entirely different prospect, one he believed held the promise of his future. At this moment, destiny had brought him to this very place, facing a woman who held the power to transform his existence entirely. The moment bore down on him, its significance causing his hands to quiver ever so slightly. Margaret observed him with a calm demeanor, her face betraying no emotions. She had offered him this opportunity, yet she would not pressure him. This was a decision for him to determine. Ethan inhaled deeply. I find myself at a loss for words. Margaret reclined in her chair. No one has ever offered you an opportunity like this before. He let out a long breath, his thoughts whirling around him. You hardly know me at all. What makes you confident that I am the suitable choice for this? Her lips curved into a smile. Resumes don't inspire confidence in me, Ethan. I have faith in others. You revealed your true self to me long before you even had an inkling of my existence. Ethan reflected on the instant he chose to assist her, how he had acted without a second thought, how his instincts compelled him to intervene. At that moment, he was unaware that this single choice would reshape the course of his entire life. Margaret clasped her hands together on the desk. I established my company by embracing opportunities with individuals who showed promise. I perceive a spark within you, a reflection of my own beginnings when I was embarking on my journey. Ethan gulped nervously. What occurs if I agree? She announced that you would be joining my executive training program. You will discover the intricacies of this business from the very foundation. Prepare to face challenges that will surprise you in unimaginable ways. Should you demonstrate your capabilities, the possibilities for your accomplishments will be boundless. Ethan's thoughts surged with intensity. This surpassed all his wildest dreams. He had dedicated years to demonstrating his worth, striving for an opportunity to shine. At that moment, the chance lay directly before him. Yet uncertainty began to seep in. What if he fell short of expectations? What if he didn't succeed? Margaret appeared to pick up on his uncertainty. Ethan, I don't anticipate you to be flawless. I anticipate your growth in understanding. The inquiry is, do you possess the bravery to venture into the unfamiliar and have faith that you will evolve? Ethan's fingers clenched around the folder. This was his moment, the sort of moment that shaped the essence of a person's existence. He locked eyes with Margaret. I'm on board. A gradual smile unfurled on her lips. Excellent. Greetings from Lawson Enterprises. As Ethan stepped out of her office, the atmosphere shifted entirely. The atmosphere felt more buoyant, a realm brimming with opportunities he had yet to imagine. He had missed an interview, yet he found himself on the brink of an unexpected journey, a future unfolding in ways he had never imagined. It all began with one simple gesture of goodwill.